And you recall yesterday when we touched on paragraph 3, wherein Mr. Adams indicates that amongst the information he had received in October 24, it was alleged that Secret Service funds were used to purchase resources for PKTT, and that this team was previously led by Divisional Commissioner of Crime Intelligence, Lieutenant General Kumalo, who has close ties with the former minister, and that it is alleged that the resources procured under the ban of the task team were for the benefit of Mr. B.H. Cele and others. Now, when we dealt with this supplementary affidavit, and I pointed out that complaints concerning the PKTT don't form part of the Section 27 affidavit, and we discussed the possibility of there being perhaps another Section 27 that specifically references the PKTT. You, if I understood you correctly, you advised that you were not aware of any investigation into the PKTT.
Correct.
Did I understand you correctly?
Correct.
And you did not say, but the conclusion I drew is that for the first time yesterday at this commission, you found out that actually there had been an investigation of some kind into the affairs of the PKTT.
That there is an allegation in a
Yes.
supplementary.
There's that is more precise, you are quite correct. There's an allegation in the supplementary which supports a call for an investigation because it's supplementing the very Section 27.
That is correct.
And you learned of that yesterday.
Yesterday.
I would like us to turn our attention to, still staying with file 9, CJC 392.2, that should be at page 3362. No, that's at 3361, Chair. Same file 9 where we see the supplementary.
3361.
3361, yes. In fact, let's start at 3360. This is at 3360, it's a letter you wrote addressed to the National Commissioner. And it reads, this office refers to the information previously requested in terms of Section 28 of the NPA Act, to which your office complied. And then at paragraph 3, you indicate attached here to is a Section 28 subpoena requesting further information. And that subpoena starts at 3361. You see that?
I see that.
And that subpoena has got a date stamp of the 3rd of April, 2025. And if you look at 3362, it has, under the heading details of the matter or other information, and I quote, this investigation pertains to unlawful promotion, appointment of personnel within the Division Crime Intelligence of the South African Police Service. Where does that matter come from? Because paragraph 5 of Mr. Adams's affidavit complains specifically about the promotion, not even the promotion, the appointment of General Kumalo as the Divisional Commissioner of Crime Intelligence. How do we land where the subpoena now implies that there's a full-blown investigation into promotions, appointments of personnel within crime intelligence?
At this stage, Chair, we were not talking about a full-blown investigation. This being the 3rd of April, it would still have been the preliminary investigation. And it would then invariably have related to the issues around the appointment of Brigadier Mokwele and promotion, stroke upon. Yes, that would, this subpoena would have related to that matter. And you can see that from the,
Okay.
yes.
All right, then let's go to 3363 while we are on that. I'm interested in item 1 of Annexure B at 3363.
Also deals with
And it's,
Kumalo, so promotion, appointment of personnel. So it would have been Mokwele, and then when you read on this one, as I see,
The fact-
that it would have dealt with Mr., there's no Mr., Lieutenant General Kumalo.
okay. And that is under item 1, specifically references the appointment by deviation of Lieutenant General Kumalo.
Correct.
Where do we know appointment was by deviation?
Sorry, Council?
How did you land at the conclusion that the appointment was by deviation? The complaint was that the appointment, original complaint, was that the appointment was effected without an interview process. Do you recall?
I cannot recall, but I would have been given this information by the investigators because they ordinarily brought these subpoenas.
Okay.
Just for information, is this
Sorry, Chair.
is this a concept that exists in the context of appointments? I know of the concept, for example, in the context of procurement, where instead of going through the usual routes, like inviting quotations and the final one being an open public tender system. But something that would ordinarily fall under the latter or this last category may be done through what is called a deviation. For example, if services are required urgently. So you talk about deviation. Do you ever talk about deviation in the context of employment? I'm not saying you don't.
No.
I just need you to
Yes.
edify me, yeah.
If I can explain it in the NPA context, as I understand it there, and it relates then to government as a whole, ordinarily, posts must be advertised with all the bells and whistles that go with it, in terms of format, forum, how long it lays, all of that. When you find that you may not, after the entire process of applicants and the sifting thereof, you find that there aren't sufficient suitable candidates. It's one of two things. You re-advertise, which in itself is again a costly exercise, or you ask for a deviation of the process. And you're allowed to ask for a deviation of the process through your department and through Treasury, which allows for, and you'll forgive me, but for the loosely worded headhunting exercise, where you would then be able to identify somebody that is suitable for that position. It is in that context, Chair, that the word deviation is used within the recruitment framework.
So it is something, it's a concept that does exist.
It does exist.
Thank you.
Because you need approval for it. It's
Thank
out
you.
of the ordinary.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And if I understand you correctly, then you equate the notion of deviation to headhunting.
Correct.
Okay.
At least in our space, we
Yes.
tend to, it's easier to use that word.
Now, is headhunting in specific circumstances, is it per se illegal, unlawful? Is it supported by law that the right authority may elect to headhunt?
It is supported by law, provided that there's certain prescripts that must be adhered to. So if those prescripts are not adhered to, then it makes it an unlawful
An
exercise.
irregular, yes. But then we know, having dealt with paragraph 5 of Mr. Adams's affidavit, that this is purely a question of how General Khumalo was appointed by the former Minister of Police, and I think we have agreed that that would not necessarily fall within the mandate of IDEC. You recall when we were looking at the suspicion that Mr. Adams has expressed at paragraph 5.
Yes.
The fact that you ask for the detail here and the documentation to support that deviation, quote unquote, does not in and of itself bring it within the ambit of IDEC. So you were acting outside your mandate there?
No, Chair. We needed to consider whether or not, in terms of the the allegations of, more especially the fraud and or corruption, if in the alleged deviation that had taken place.
Where does the
That is
fraud
how
and corruption come?
I understand it.
Also, my apologies. Now you are imputing corruption in the deviation and fraud. Where do those notions now come from? We start from paragraph 5 of the referral affidavit. We don't have a supplementary affidavit, we have just established, on the issue of the appointment of General Khumalo. How do we even land on fraud or corruption? We have just, I think, agreed that deviation, which is headhunting, properly executed and following applicable prescripts, is permissible. When did we get to fraud and corruption, and how?
Can we just, I know you say that, Council, that we didn't, we only had the 27. If you look at the date of, the summons is 3 April.
It's April.
By then, we ought to have had the supplementary affidavits from Mr. Adams.
Yeah, we have them. Remember,
Yes.
they are taken on the 6th of January.
Yes,
And we have clarified this morning what topics they specifically covered.
yes. If I could just cast my mind there, that was the color. It's confusing about which one I must now cast my mind to, because you've given me 2 sets and one of which I only saw yesterday, but I cast my mind to the first set I've seen. Yes. Fadiel Adams. If you look at, sorry, Commissioners, 3, and sorry, Chair, I don't want you to play dice with the files, but it is in file 9. If we go to 3475,
Okay?
file 9.
Yes.
And this having been taken on the 6th of January, the subpoena being the 3rd of April, paragraph 2, on or about early October 24, I received information anonymously surrounding alleged fraud and corruption perpetrated by General Masemola, National Commissioner of the South African Police Services, and other senior generals of SAPS. The allegations related to the highly questionable appointment of General Khumalo as the head of crime intelligence nationally. The former Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, was also involved in this, while several highly skilled generals within CI were overlooked. That is where they would have put into the subpoena, Chair, the fraud and corruption to which I referred.
Oh.
This is the document having been drafted then by investigators.
By
the investigators and prosecutors.
No, not investigators. We dealt with this yesterday.
Yes, the information from the investigators, this is a document that would be compiled by the prosecutors, and this is where that information of fraud and corruption would have come from. I conclude.
We settled this yesterday. What you are looking at is Mr. Perumal's affidavit.
Yes.
That's not the investigator's plural affidavit.
Yes.
And this is the questionable affidavit as to when Mr. Perumal took this, took this statement and commissioned it.
And not only when, there's also the question of where, which is quite the Cape Town, Pretoria
Indeed.
issue.
So this I would think, based on our conversation yesterday, as to what constitute the true supplementary affidavits or statements by Mr. Adams. This cannot be one of them, because you have Advocate Ramsamy and investigator Rapesu, who say they don't know where these documents come from. And there's a question, and a serious question, whether or not they were fabricated within IDEC, because the two of a three-man team of investigators that engaged Mr. Adams completely disavow these documents, including the very one you've just relied upon. To assist you, besides that affidavit you rely on, personally, I'm not aware of any other document.
No.
There might very well be, but I'm saying I'm not aware of it. If you have a sense of what you might be looking for, please indicate. We will try and see if we can locate it for you in the meantime, so that we can move on.
And I say if, because it's an exercise the Commission will still undertake about.
Yes.
Which is the true set. There is some alluding there too. If you look at the supplementary, if we are to say that the supplementary taken by Mr. Rapesu, although it is not as detailed, says on 3489,
Yes.
paragraph 3, Commissioners, Chair, amongst the information, it was alleged that certain high-ranking police official security clearances and promotions were awarded as a result of alleged corrupt practices. That is the only other reference I can find.
And in fact, that I think actually dovetails with what's in this, the original affidavit, which is about security clearances, but now it's got promotions being awarded as a result of alleged corrupt practices. That can be talking to the original paragraph 5. And even if we say they were, how that then lands you on Lieutenant General Khumalo is difficult for me to appreciate for the moment. But however you landed there this morning, you considered that would still not be a matter that falls within the mandate of IDEC.
That is correct,
It's an
no matter
employment
which way
issue.
we debate it.
Yes. And then if we go back to our section 28, still staying with file 9, we're at page 3363. Yes, ma'am.
Are you still coming back to this document, or are you done with it? 3363.
I'm 3363. That's where
You're
I'm
still
going
busy
now.
with it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Staying then with 3363. If we say this, what we are dealing with at 3363, in my reading, is much like the Mukwele matter. Items 1 to 5. These seems like what the documents requested relate all to the employment and recruitment of General Khumalo. And you remember the exercise that Commissioner Khumalo took you through to establish that the employment of Brigadier Mukwele, absent any unlawfulness and fraud and corruption, is purely an employment matter and doesn't fall within the mandate of.
Good.
And my proposition to you is similarly here.
Which is what I had
Yes.
alluded to previously, must then be dealt with differently.
Which then would mean the requested information from items 1 to 5 ought not to be part of the Section 28.
Correct.
Now, my interest really lies in items 6 and 7.
Before you do item 6 and 7,
Yes, ma'am.
item 2, you're seeking a list of all provincial heads and section heads, major generals in crime intelligence. You want their performance assessments for 2022, I think you meant 2023. You want all documentation related to 2 previous advertised processes, and you list what you want. You want, among others, panel appointments, long lists, short lists, interview records. You want audio and video recordings of interviews. 4, you want to know about records wherein Lieutenant General Jacobs' refusal to return to crime intelligence. You also want an affidavit indicating whether Lieutenant General Jacobs has any civil or labor proceedings pending regarding his temporary transfer as Divisional Commissioner of Crime Intelligence. 2 questions. Where in the Section 27 do these come from? That there are issues about performance assessment, that there are issues about provincial heads and section heads, that there are issues about Lieutenant General Jacobs. That's the first question. Where in your Section 27 does this come from? That's the first question. The second question is, what does it have to do with your mandate? What happened with Lieutenant General Jacobs? What happened with interviews? What performance assessments of major generals in 2022, 2023? That's the second question. What does that have to do with the mandate? Where do looking at the Section 27 of Mr. Adams, the one that's before us, where does these questions come from?
Commissioner
Or where
Bal-
do these questions, where do these questions come from?
Yes. Commissioner Baloy, for me, these questions would seek to determine whether or not there was a necessity for the deviation, whether or not there were suitable persons within crime intelligence based on their history and performance, and given that there should not have been a deviation. And the allegation then that there was corruption and fraud in how these processes were run. That is how I took it to read.
Well, Mr. Adams doesn't say anything about performance assessments. He says the appointment of General Kumalo, who did not qualify to be appointed, and other generals, and he doesn't say who. You sign off on a summons that requires information of provincial heads and section heads. You want the performance assessments. I don't see how that arises from Mr. Adams's affidavit. You can go and read paragraph 5 again. Even the supplementaries, I don't see where this comes from.
For me, Commissioner Baloy, this comes from what evidence would be required to prove the alleged deviation and or irregularity.
How would an
of
assessment,
that-
how would records of assessments say anything about a deviation, whether a
That-
deviation was warranted or not? You look at the memorandum that justified the request for a deviation and the approval, and that's what you assess. Performance assessments have nothing to do with it, unless I don't know how things work in government.
No, I don't dispute that you don't.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, it would have given a better picture of whether or not there were other suitable candidates within the ambit of crime intelligence, and that you would therefore not have had to deviate, but could have gone on the normal process of advertising for those positions.
Yeah,
And that
even-
would make the
Sorry.